Hi there, good morning. I'm Jamey from Stonemaier Games, and I'm here on Vantage launch day at Stonemaier Games. It's a very exciting day. This is a game that I've been working on for a really, really long time, and I'm really so excited that that is finally going to be out there in the world, that you can play it, that you can explore this planet on this cooperative exploration non-campaign game. I'm happy to answer any questions about the game or any questions that you have about general things regarding today's launch. If you have a very specific order question or order issue, please contact contact@stonemaier.com with your order number, screenshots, any information that you can have to help us facilitate help with your order. But yeah, general questions I can certainly answer. Just very specific, like private things specific to your order, that's probably not best for me to answer live right now. Yeah, so we have a lot to talk about today. We're going to talk about the Vantage launch. Ian says, "Is this my?" Ian says, "Is this my most exciting launch?" Every launch is very exciting. It is exciting. It's also the more exciting a launch is, the more nerve-wracking it is too, because I want things to go well. I want to serve our customers to the best of our ability, and it's complicated to do that on a day when there's an influx of traffic and questions and things like that. Similar question from the Champion faction. What past game launch was the most exciting? What was the most stressful? I would say they're all stressful. Because, like I said, because I want to streamline the process as much as possible, but we have a lot of moving parts. We have multiple people working on customer service today. We have Dave making sure the website and web store is up and running as well as possible, and I get a lot of questions from customers too. So yeah, it's hard for me to pick one. Chad says, "Am I treating myself today?" I do have a little treat today that I'll mention briefly. I was in England, the UK, and in Norway last week, and I bought some treats there. So here are some Norwegian treats that I bought in Norway, some chocolate of the day, and yeah, I don't know which one of these I'll eat first, but I'm excited about all of them. Ryder says, "Do you guess internally how many copies will sell from the website on launch day?" Yeah, I mean, that's forecasting. We're constantly guessing how many that quantity will be, even up to the last minute when we're trying to use buffer copies to make sure that we have enough. So yeah, we're constantly trying to figure that out. Garrett says, "Super surprised by the price. When did you officially land on that being the launch price right up to the last minute?" Yeah, I mean, truly, honestly, right up into the last minute, I am thinking about what the launch price should be, and even what the MSRP for the game might be, based on a lot of different factors. Hopefully we picked a price that is fair and reasonable for the value that the game offers. I know the price isn't exactly the same in every region, because there are other factors in play there too, like taxes, when taxes are added to the order, how much it costs to freight ship a game to a specific region, and just also kind of currency fluctuations can happen all the time, and we have to account for that as well. That makes things really complicated, because we don't want to constantly adjust all of our prices on all of our web stores based on currency calculations. So yeah. Steve mentioned that there are apiary wooden hibernation tokens today as well. Yeah, this is something we've been working on for a while. For apiary, we have these hibernation tokens that you can now buy for apiary that are wooden and nicer than the original cardboard versions. Those are on the web store right now too. Darian says, "How many copies were printed? Is there a risk of selling out before Sunday?" Darian, it's a guessing game. We made 50,000 copies of Vantage, but a significant number of them are going to retail and distribution. And so I would highly encourage people, if you want to get Vantage from our web store, I encourage you to do it today. There's no rush to do it today, but I think today is the safest day to ensure that you get a first printing web store copy of Vantage. Adam says, "Was Vantage represented on the blue Stonemaier stamp shirt?" It was. I believe it is a compass icon on some of the shirts that we've had over the last many years, really, because Vantage has been in the work for so long. And speaking of shirts, I am wearing the new World of Wingspan shirt. I don't know if you can see it here. Yeah, there we go. We have fish jumping out of the water, into a bird, into a dragon. This is the new shirt that we designed in conjunction with Jeremy Colling, the disc golfer, professional disc golfer that we sponsor. This is, at least it should be, available on our website right now. Let's see if I'm going to latest releases. That's where you should go if you go to our website today. Go to latest releases. And yes, the World of Wingspan shirt is indeed on the web store right now for you to pick up if you'd like. Right now, the one thing about the web store that's a little bit weird for me is that if I go to the home page, it's not updating to Vantage products. So you might have that same issue. But if you go to recent or latest releases on our web store, you will see all the new products that we're selling today. Let's see. Pete says, what were your best gameplays on the Board Game Geek cruise? Well, Pete, that's a great question. So very briefly, and I'm happy to talk about this in detail, but very briefly, over the last week, I went to England for a few days. Then I got on a cruise that went from Southampton up to the Norwegian fjords and then back to Southampton. And then we flew back to St. Louis. And on this cruise, it was a gaming cruise. And so we played a lot of games on this cruise with 200 other amazing people. The cruise itself had thousands of people. We were just a gaming group on this cruise. And some of the most thematic games that I played that I also really enjoyed for the cruise were Skull King, because we were on the water. We weren't pirates. We were on the water. Let's Go to Japan, because, we're traveling. Galactic Cruise, because we're on a cruise ship. Salt Fjord, a really delightful reimagining of Santa Maria. Wingspan, I taught and played Wingspan 3 times, and the game Far Shore, the Everdell sequel. So all those games I really enjoyed, and they were really particularly thematic to play on the cruise. I also played some other games that I really enjoyed, but those are some of the ones that I'll highlight. I played a total of 11 new to me games, and then probably another 10 games that I already knew and already enjoyed. Chad says, I placed an order with extras. I know they won't ship until next week. It won't ship until the earliest next week, Chad, when those extras get to fulfillment centers. My order will still hold my copy of Vantage, even if you sell out by next week. Yeah, Chad, yeah, definitely. If you order it, anything that you order is removed from inventory and reserved just for you after you place that order. What Chad is referring to is for the U.S. web store specifically, the accessories for Vantage have not arrived yet. They have been at port for the last week or so, waiting to get on a train. And the word that we have is that they'll probably get on a train today, but then they have to make their way to St. Louis. So the thing that I mentioned in the newsletter, which is, I'll show that newsletter on the screen over here. Here's the Vantage newsletter. There we go. Here we go. That's what it looks like. I might refer to that during this live cast. If you're in the US and you want to get Vantage as soon as you could possibly get it, make sure you're a Stonemaier champion, or add a champion membership to your cart when you check out. And you could just order Vantage for now and then place a separate order also today, but separate order for the accessories. And that means Vantage will ship separate from the accessories. It won't be held up as we wait for the accessories to arrive next week. Now, most likely champion shipments are going to take the next 2 weeks easily at best. And so most champion shipments, regardless of whether or not they do or do not have accessories, will still ship in that time period. I'm just letting you know this. If getting Vantage specifically to the table as fast as possible is your top priority, you could split up the game from the other accessories in the US, just in the US. Zachary says, are the shirts and metal coins part of the accessories that will be coming next week? They have already arrived, I believe, Zachary. So you can put any of those in the order. The reason I'm saying all these caveats about US shipping is just specifically about Vantage. If you want to get Vantage to the table, most likely just the fastest way to do it as a champion is to just order Vantage by itself and then order the other stuff separately. Even the stuff that you mentioned in your comment here. Sorry, just scrolling down looking for comments here. Ben says, will the playmats fit into the box or do they need to be stored separately? The playmats add 12 millimeters of lid lift to the Vantage box, but they do fit into the box, or you can keep them in the slim box they come with next to Vantage on your shelf. Michael says, since it's an open world game, is it possible for a player to go over all of the contents? If yes, how many hours will it take? Michael, let's see what you're asking. Is it possible to go over all the content? So are you asking, is it possible for a player to see everything in the world? Over many, many plays of Vantage, yes, it is possible to see everything in the world of Vantage. Yeah, it isn't a legacy game. It isn't something that you'll be going to like tearing up a card because you went to some other place. So over many, many plays of Vantage, you can see everything in the world. Steven says, did you ever consider the meta game implications of gaining planet knowledge with each playthrough as a player while playing a character, almost like a time loop, constantly reliving the crash, and why? Vantage is, I appreciate you asking about that, Steven. You have mentioned some of the themes that you might find in Vantage, but it was important, I think, that Vantage be a standalone game. There's nothing other than your knowledge of the game, just like any other game that you play. If you play a game of Scythe or Terra Mystica or Arc Nova, if you play a game like that, you will carry over everything that you've learned about that game to the next time you play. But it's a standalone experience, and that was as you will find as you play Vantage, that is important to the experience of playing Vantage. That every time you play, it is just a standalone experience, separate from any other previous times that you played. If you'd really like to think of it as a time loop, you can. I don't think that really disrupts the experience of the game, but that is not officially what is happening with Vantage. It's just a standalone game every time you play. Gustavo says, why don't we ship to Brazil? Gustavo, we used to ship to Brazil, but we found that very few shipments actually arrived in Brazil, unfortunately. And that is the same, unfortunately, with some other countries in South and Central America. So what we're happy to do is we can ship to a forwarding address in the US. So if you have a forwarding address in the US that you have had success shipping from that address, there are services that do this to wherever you are, Brazil in your case. I encourage you to use that. You can easily do that. You can ship from the Stonemaier Games web store to a US forwarding address. FG Bison says, congrats on launch day. Quick question. Okay. Do you have to put a card in your grid orthogonally, or can you put it diagonally? You can put a card anywhere in the 8 slots around your character in the grid, even if it's not adjacent to another card. I believe I might have to double check that, but I'm pretty sure that is the case. It should be in the rules either way. Donna asked if the shirts will be available in 5XL. And Donna, unfortunately, all the sizes that we were able to offer for the shirt, all the sizes this type of material is made in, are all the sizes currently offered on our web store. I think they're pretty stretchy. I mean, this is a medium. I usually wear a small. This is a medium, and it's nice and flexible and stretchy. It is partially polyester, I believe. But yeah, totally up to you if you want to try that. Aaron asks, will the shirt be at GenCon? I don't know if the shirt will be at GenCon. If you go to the events and conventions page of our website, at some point, Dave should be adding a spreadsheet to that page, or a link to a spreadsheet. I think it's actually always linked there. I don't know if it's populated yet. That has everything that might be or that will be at GenCon. I don't know if that's updated, and I don't know if the shirt is on it, though. Steve says, how do we manage to keep the price so low? I mean, Steve, I've spent literally years working with Panda to try to offer a great value for what Vantage is. Largely, the price is related to the manufacturing costs, not to all the sunk costs we put into the game. We're hoping to recover those over time. But yeah, we really it's just a lot of work with our manufacturing partner in China to offer a great value for the amount of content that you're getting. So yeah, just a lot of conversations and tests and things that we worked on for a long time. Stormlight says, is the Wingspan fan art on the progress chart a new fan pack? Cards from a specific continent. So yeah, I've shared some of this information in the Wingspan newsletter if you want to check that out. But the general idea behind the Wingspan fan design cards, this isn't fan art. These are new birds on continents that we've already covered, and for birds that weren't in those continents. So like we've had a European expansion. These will be, some of them might involve some birds in Europe that weren't in the European expansion. Designed by fans, illustrated to not by the original Wingspan illustrators, but they blend with the standard illustration style of Wingspan. Julia also asked about the shirt and Vantage. Vantage will definitely be at GenCon, Julia. I don't know about the shirt specifically. Joshua says, was it complex to put all the locations on double-sided cards in a way that no two players may need opposite sides of the same card? Joshua, it is actually possible that two players could end up on the same location or locations that share the front and the back of a location card. So if that happens, you just pass the card back and forth across the table. Hans Mall says, do you think it is likely to be spoiled for Vantage? I'm not sure if I should wait for the German version. I think it will be easy to avoid spoilers for Vantage. And really, there are many different levels of spoilers for Vantage. Like I've avoided even telling you like the types of things that you can find in the world. But if you watch a playthrough, you might see some of those things. But there are many deeper spoilers that go into the game that I think will be fairly easy to avoid if you do want to wait for a different language version. Dan says, did I manage to get up the skylift in Olden? Did you have a favorite stop? Dan, I'm glad you asked about Olden. So we stopped at 3 places in Norway, Molde, Olden, and Haugesund. And we had very different experiences at each of these places. A quick recap of what we did at those places. In Molde, we mostly walked around. We took a long hike up to an outlook, and we saw a beautiful view, and we walked back down, and we kind of walked around we went to a nice little coffee shop there, walked around the city, walked near the soccer stadium in Molde. Then we went to Olden. Olden was probably, well, they're all different. I had favorite experiences at all the different places. But in Olden, instead of doing the skylift, Dan, we took a bus, a tour guide bus to the glacier hike, and then took an incredible hike, possibly the most beautiful hike that I've ever taken. But New Zealand does have some competition for that, as do some U.S. national parks. But if you ever go to Olden, I think the hike up to the glacier and then back down is worth it, because unlike most hikes where like it's the final thing that you get to, that's the most beautiful thing that you see, every moment along this hike in Olden was the most beautiful thing. You're surrounded by natural beauty there. So we had an incredible hike in Olden up to this glacier. Maybe not exactly in Olden. The port was in Olden, but it was slightly outside of that. And then in Haugesund, we had a very busy day. We did some historical stuff. We went to a recreation of a Viking village. I had a lunch with an ambassador, Patrick, Stonemaier ambassador, and then we played games near the Game Ninja game shop organized by the local gaming group. So we had a great time doing some gaming related stuff in Haugesund. Jacob says he recently started disc golfing with some family every other weekend, having a lot of fun with that. Do you use the Stonemaier disc when you play? I do. Yeah, I'm glad you're having fun with it, Jacob. That's awesome. I do use the Stonemaier disc quite a bit. I throw the Brute, the Tapestry, the Green. Well, I don't throw the Green Gully quite as much anymore, but Brute and Tapestry I use quite a bit. I wish I had the Vantage disc to show here. I went down to my car this morning to see if I had a copy. I don't have it. I think my friends took the sample copies that I had, so I need to get one. But there is a Vantage disc, a brand new Vantage disc, if you want to try that one out. Chad says, were you able to relax while on your cruise with the Vantage launch approaching? I did a lot of work for the Vantage launch in advance, and I did have internet access on the boat. So I worked for a few hours every day that helped me stay relaxed. I enjoy doing that rather than letting work pile up when I get home. So yeah, I was feeling pretty comfortable about it. Really, the most stressful stuff has happened in the last hour as we realized a few things. But overall, I think it's going okay. Yeah, looking at our launch reporting. Let's see. Thank you all for all these questions today. I'm happy to talk about other things about the gaming cruise if you'd like, or anything about Vantage. Robert says, in preparation for Vantage, I played Viticulture Automa game, and it's clear why Stonemaier Games is known globally. Are you excited that your past and future designs last the test of time? I'm elated by that, Robert. And thank you for playing Viticulture. Really, the fact that Viticulture, the first game that I published years ago, 13 years ago, I guess it released 12 years ago, that is still being played and still being sold on a regular basis is incredible to me. So yeah, that warms my heart that many of our games last the test of time, whether it's a game designed by me or someone else that I had the pleasure of working with. Let's see, just scrolling down looking for questions today. I'm happy to answer anything you'd like. Matthew says, are the Vantage game boxes numbered like other games? In fact, they are. I can show you right here. Here is the Vantage numbering right down here. It's out of 50,000 copies. I had the 0 copy here. This was the first copy pulled off the print run. So yeah, they are indeed individually numbered. Linda says, she just joined. Where can we order? Linda, you can order on the Stonemaier Games web store. That's where Vantage is available today. Or, as always, from your local retailer. Local retailers should be able to start. In fact, here's Fred talking about this. Fred says he pre-ordered through his friendly local game store. That's awesome. I love hearing that people are doing this too. The local game store release will be August 15th for Vantage. Fred says, what's the procedure with fulfillment through local game stores, particularly in Europe? Fred, it's kind of handled through distribution. So we work with distributors. We also work directly with some retailers to get them their copies of the game and the accessories, anything they order, and then they can they can accept orders from you in advance. They can't actually give you any of those products until August 15th for local stores. Jamie has some questions. So Jamie lives in Japan, and he was shopping on the Australia store and looking at free shipping. Jamie, you're right. There is a free shipping threshold, but it doesn't apply to every country because, as you said, shipping to certain countries is very expensive, and that is a number that we're making up. That is the actual postage cost for us to ship. So we would lose quite a bit of money if we offered free shipping to Japan, even after a shipping threshold. I'm sorry about that. Shipping is it's expensive to get from Australia over to Japan. Chad says, would it be possible to get a video or interview with the 3 Vantage artists? I'm very interested in their experience bringing this world to life. I don't know if a video will be possible. There are 3 different artists in 3 different parts of the world, but I will ask the artists if there's anything that they want to share, any stories they want to share. That isn't, I don't want to put a burden on them, but if they want to share something, whether it's in a video or in writing, I'm happy to include that in a future Vantage update. I'll make a note about that now. Yeah, thank you for that question. PC says they just ordered the Game Plus all accessories, looking at 3 weeks, maybe. Yeah, that's about accurate. I appreciate you padding it a little bit there. It depends a little bit if you're a Stonemaier champion or not. Champion orders will ship first, then non-champion orders. And shipping, we're anticipating, I haven't looked at the numbers, but we're anticipating an influx of orders for Vantage today. I hope people are ordering Vantage today and getting excited about it. And it will take time for our fulfillment centers to ship what I hope will be thousands of orders. So we're expecting shipping to take at least all of July, maybe even to a little bit into August, but I think most shipping should be done in July. Nate says, are the champion hoodies for sale yet? They are not, Nate, not yet. We'll offer them a little bit later this year. Richard says, is there anything we should know before our first play of Vantage? There's actually a section in the rulebook, Richard, about that is labeled like before your first play. And I think there's one also labeled after your first play. So there's some advice in the rulebook to keep in mind before your first play of Vantage. The Infinite Dude says, do you have a sense of where in Arizona your company retreat will be? If you're near me, I'd love to meet you and your company folks near the nearby friendly local game store. So yeah, I talked a little bit about how we're planning a company retreat. Isn't even quite the right word. I've been using that, but we're getting together as a company. We're a small company. There's 8 of us in Phoenix, Arizona in January. And I appreciate you mentioning that you want to meet us there. I think, though, most likely, I mean, we might visit a local game store. In fact, we'd love to. But I'm trying to keep this centered on us as a company, which I know it sounds a little bit weird. The reason for that is on every other second of any other day, we're focused on you. We're focused on our customers. And I think it's important for the 2 days that we'll spend in Phoenix, that it's kind of about us as a team. And so, well, normally when we travel, I want to include people. I want to bring in anybody as possible. That's what I was doing on the cruise. I was trying to play games with anyone and everyone as possible. I think this is about the Stonemaier Games team and kind of just us being together for once, because we do work remotely. We rarely see each other. Yeah, but I appreciate you saying that. And maybe if we do go to a local game store, maybe we'll plan it ahead in advance to say, so that we could say, hey, we're going to be here at this time to say hi to people if you want to drop by this store to say hi. Chet says, how awesome was it to see Stonehenge again? Do they allow you to touch the stones? So yeah, I visited Stonehenge about 20 years ago, and then I returned last week, and it was still there. It's been there for a long, long time. It doesn't appear to have changed at all in the last 20 years, as far as I can tell. Although in my memory, we were a lot closer. Like when the visitor center at Stonehenge was a lot closer to what it is now. Maybe it changed, or maybe my memory is just incorrect. But no, you can't get close to the stones. I think it's only on the Solstice that you can get near the stones, and you're not supposed to touch them. And we were actually very close to the Solstice. We were just a few days off. So you're kind of in a big circle. There's a roped off area around the stones. There's a part where you're maybe about 20 to 30 feet away, and then another part where you're much farther away from it. But from all angles, it's a spectacular view of Stonehenge. You really like to take your time and go around it. Ian says, when would you suggest noting a spoiler warning when posting about playing Vantage? It's a good question, Ian, and it's something that we might have to navigate on an ongoing basis as people indicate different preferences for types of things that are sharing. But in general, I want people to feel comfortable sharing their Vantage stories, sharing their grid, sharing cool locations that they stumble upon or how they got there. And so I would say I would encourage you to feel comfortable sharing that kind of stuff. And if you want to put a spoiler warning, you can. If you feel like you've stumbled upon something that is relatively rare in the game that others may not easily find, that would be a great place to put it. But in general, I'm hoping people will be open to the experience of seeing other people's adventures and on social media. Yeah. But yeah, we'll have to navigate it as we go. I'm not entirely sure right now. Mitch says, now that Vantage has shipped, what hasn't shipped yet? It's in the process of shipping. What mechanisms would you like to carry over to the next game that you design? I mean, the next game that I design, or the game that I'm working on right now is quite different from Vantage, so I'm not really carrying over any mechanisms. But the core mechanism, the core action mechanism in Vantage is, I think, my favorite skill test style mechanism in any game. It isn't even quite a skill test, even though it involves skills and it is a challenge. But I really like the way it works out. So if I ever do another adventure game, I might consider using a similar action mechanism as the one in Vantage. Lori says, do you think Wormspan or Finspan will make their way to Board Game Arena anytime soon? Typically, we wait around 2 years after the game's launch for a game to be considered for Board Game Arena. And so for Wormspan, I think will likely be there first, maybe in a year or so, and then Finspan might follow a year or so after that. Brian says, are the Vantage Rolling Realm promos in stock or on their way? They are in stock. Yeah, they're on our web store now for you to pick up if you'd like. Oh, awesome. Melissa at Tantrum House says that at Tantrum House, Kevin and her will be streaming a live playthrough of Vantage tomorrow night, 7 p.m. Eastern at the Tantrum House YouTube channel. Thank you, Melissa, for doing that and for mentioning that here. I appreciate that. Oh, Chad, I'm glad Chad gave a shout out here. While I was on the cruise last week, my coworkers Alex and Susanna hosted the live cast instead of me, and Chad said they did a great job. I really appreciate them doing that. I know it's not what they typically do or maybe how they want to spend their Wednesday mornings, but I really appreciate Alex and Susanna doing that. Carol says, what were a couple gaming highlights from you on your cruise? I mean, so I mentioned a few games earlier, Carol. I mentioned Skull King, Let's Go to Japan, Galactic Cruise, Salt Fjord, Finspan, and Far Shore, all of which were gaming highlights for me. What are some other games that I played that I didn't mention there? Let's see. I need to pull up my list. I played 11 new to me games. I played a poker style game called Mushroom Sort. I played Port Royale, the dice game. I really enjoyed that. I played Loot with 3 O's and the landmarks, and enjoyed all of them. And Bomb Busters. Bomb Busters was also really, really cool. I really enjoyed that as well. Let's see. Hans says, will there be some Easter eggs and references to other Stonemaier games in Vantage? There are certainly some Easter eggs in Vantage. I didn't include too many that poked at other Stonemaier games specifically, but there are Easter eggs in the world for sure. Johnny says, do you know if the miniature market pickup will be available sooner than the 1 to 3 week shipping timeline? Yeah, for anyone in St. Louis, like Johnny, that you can choose to pick up your order from our warehouse/fulfillment center miniature market. You don't actually go to the warehouse, you go to their store. And usually they have it within a few days. So I bet early next week you'll get a pickup notification. It does depend on whether or not you got accessories, because we're still waiting for the accessories to arrive in the US. So if you ordered accessories, it might be a few days later. Matthew says, so now that Vantage is launched, is there another massive multi-year development game in the pipeline? No pressure. Matthew, I think right now I'm just excited to focus on Vantage. I mean, I've been working on it for a long time, but the reason I've been working on it is so that people like you can play it and enjoy it. So for at least the next few months, I just want to focus on that. I want to focus on your experience of playing Vantage after all the time that I've spent playing it over the last 8 years. I see a question about the Wingspan Dragon Academy expansion. Well, I'll talk about that later this year as well. I do need to add a BGG entry for that, though. Thanks for mentioning that. Yeah. Jason says, the website says this is a medium weight game, Vantage specifically. How heavy would this be in comparison to, say, Wingspan or Red Rising? Good question. I mean, in Vantage, the decision space that you have on any given turn it starts fairly narrow. You only have a few different actions that you can take. They're on your character, on the location. And it's a streamlined action system. So at its core, it is not a complex game to learn or get to the table. So I'd say maybe at its core, it's closer to Red Rising than Wingspan. Benjamin says, how soon do you expect to do a second print run if you sell out quickly? So a second print run, if we started a second print run today, it would take about 5 months before it arrived at our warehouses. So I think a lot of it depends on how Vantage does today and over the next few days. That will determine whether or not we start a reprint right away or if we wait a little bit before starting a reprint. Aaron says, would you suggest sleeving the cards of Vantage? I would highly suggest not sleeving the cards of Vantage. That's a lot of plastic to use for 1,300 cards that are never shuffled. Cards in Vantage are not shuffled, and they do not fit into the box. We would have had to double the size of the Vantage box for sleeved cards to fit. George says, did I get a good night's sleep with the daylight season, having long daylight midnights and all? So on the cruise ship, I think is what George is referring to. Yeah, we were up in Norway, where it was just as bright at 11 o'clock at night as it was at noon in the middle of the day. Fortunately, the curtains were pretty close to being blackout curtains. Not quite, but pretty close. And so I had no problem sleeping on the ship. Kelly says, did I buy a disc from the game store in Haugesund? I did not. I looked through the disc golf collection there. I love seeing that they had discs there. But I was looking for something that was distinctly like Norwegian or Nordic and or related to a tournament in Norway, and I couldn't find one. Maybe there was one there and I didn't look hard enough. But I wish I had. I wish I had a little bit more time in that store. Let's see. I'm just scrolling through looking for questions right now. Thomas says, is there any info on the gaming cruise? Yeah, Thomas, check out the blog post that I wrote on Monday. It's part 1 of a 2-part blog post I'll be writing about the gaming cruise, but I did focus on the BGG at Sea cruise specifically and what made it so amazing and special in Monday's blog post. It's run by Jeff and Christine. Jeff Anderson did an incredible job coordinating this gaming cruise. And yeah, it was incredible. Like we got to see these beautiful places in Norway and get a ton of steps in on the day when we were on the days when we were in Norway. And then on the sea days, we got to play a bunch of games with people who love playing games, which was incredible. Yeah, it's BGG at Sea. I really highly recommend it. Jeff says top 3 meals on the cruise. So we balanced meals on the cruise with trying to eat some Norwegian food while we were on shore. We had like a pancake folded in half with buttercream in the middle. We had some brown cheese from Norway. We had a really delicious fish soup. That was probably one of my favorite meals in Haugesund. On the cruise itself, food was everywhere. We were constantly eating food. We had a really nice sushi tasting meal. We had a great Italian meal. Every meal in the main dining hall was themed and unique for that specific meal. Yeah, there's so much food. I don't know if I can narrow it down to 3 meals, but because we just ate really, really well on this cruise. Chad says, disc golf geek question. Do you write your name and number on the bottom of your favorite disc in case they get lost? I recently found someone's disc and contacted them. That is, I think, fairly standard practice for people to do. I often forget to do it, and I need to do it more often. But yeah, I do it on many of my discs and need to do it on all of them. Oh, Kevin mentioned that he's been on the Dice Tower cruise every year and absolutely love it. I think they're probably pretty similar cruises. I don't know for sure. I've only been on this one BGG at sea, but yeah, had a great time. I'm glad you had a good time on Dice Tower, Kevin. Chicken Nugget Supreme says, who decides what the flight characteristics of a given game's disc are going to be? Are you trying to build a balanced catalog of disc offerings? It's something that I talk about with the artist Miles. We just try to find an Innova disc that maybe has a similar name or the name of the Innova disc is themed similarly to the game itself. That's maybe the starting point for it. And then we do look at the types of discs that we already offer, try to offer just a variety of different discs. At this point, we have, I think, multiple discs of all types. So we look more at the Innova name compared to the theme of the game. James says, are they referring to the Wingspan shirt? Yeah, I think they're referring to the Wingspan shirt. This is the new shirt that we're offering on our web store today, the World of Wingspan shirt. Richard says, is there a size chart? There should be a size chart on the web store. Let's see if I can find it, Richard. I'll head over to the web store now to see what I can find. You know, the size chart is not on the web store, so I will add that, Richard. If it's any help, I am around 5'10", 150. This is a medium that I'm wearing right now. I would say it's a little bit baggy on me. I usually wear a small. Smalls are maybe a little bit tight on me, but somewhere in between. This is that. But I will add a size chart. Size chart for shirt. Thank you for mentioning that. Nate says, is Vantage Stonemeier's only game that doesn't include a solo mode by Automa Factory? Were they a part of the design process at all? Well, there is actually some Automa influence in Vantage, but you need to discover it. It's a bit of a spoiler. But in general, Vantage it's playable for 1 to 6 players without any need for Automa. There's no need to have an autonomous player in it. There's no AI that you need to run in Vantage. I talked about it with Morton to let him know how Vantage worked. He knows how Vantage works. He's played it. So they were involved, but they weren't involved from an Automa creation process. And I think maybe that might, but they are in the game in a way that you will discover. So I think all of our games still have Automa in them. Everett says, how do you celebrate a successful launch or game completion? Not well. I'm not very good at celebrating like big moments in my life. And today is a big moment, but I think even though today is a big moment for me and for Stonemaier Games, it's hard for me to celebrate until we actually get the games to you. Until then, it seems a little premature. It is worth celebrating today that Vantage is finally available, but I think that the bigger moment is when we've shipped it to all of you, and even after the retail release too. That's another big moment as well. Mario says, one of the trends in PC games are survival games where you need to build a shelter, gather food, and survive in the environment. Have you considered creating a game with that team or that aspect of survival? We have. There are some other good survival tabletop games, I think. Vantage is a game about crashing on a planet. It is. I would not call it a survival game. You aren't grinding to try to survive in the game. So I don't know if that the theme of survival, I don't know if that specific theme excites me all that much, especially since other games in the genre do already exist, especially Robinson Crusoe. If you want to struggle to survive in a game, go play Robinson Crusoe on the tabletop and you'll have that experience. Luke says, will the Wingspan expansion mean new player boards like Wingspan Oceania? I look forward to talking about the Wingspan expansion in a few months. Yeah. Let's see. Evan says, I don't see an age recommendation. There is a 14 plus age recommendation on the Vantage box, but that is more for legal reasons to classify it not as a toy. But there's no mature content in the game. It is perfectly fine for anyone of any age to play, as long as they can read. You need to be able to read to play Vantage, because only you can see your location, and there is some text on that location. Another question here. In the test result, if we're presented with choices, we're not supposed to know what we'll get from each option, right? Yeah, there's a little note about that in the rulebook. Maybe it's not as clear as it could be, but sometimes you will have an action result in Vantage that says, choose one of these 2 things or 3 things. And for those things, thematically in the spirit of the game, you only read the bolded text. You don't read the result of it. So it might even not be things. It might be like, you walk up to Jamey's house. What do? Do you knock on the door? Do you text Jamey or whatever? And so you would choose knock on the door or text Jamey, not knowing what the result of texting or knocking on the door will be. Yeah, hopefully that explains it. Horton says, will you publish Vantage gameplay, or is a blind experience better for this game? We do have a Vantage gameplay video on our YouTube channel. There's also a number of other content creators who have shared playthrough videos. You are welcome to try to watch them if you want to see if it's a good fit for you. Even by watching one of the playthrough videos that's already out there and available for you to watch, you'll see such a small portion of the Vantage planet that it really, like, it is technically a spoiler, but it's a very, very minor spoiler at that to watch one playthrough video. Okay, so it looks like Ben was able to visit. So Ben visited Stonehenge on the Solstice when you were able to get really close to the stones, and he said you were actually allowed to touch the stones. That's really cool. I didn't know that, Ben, and I knew that about the Solstice. I just recently learned that, but I didn't know that you could actually touch them. I see a lot of people. I'm sorry, I'm scrolling through the comments, but I do see a lot of people saying that they ordered Vantage and were excited about it. Heimwort says, so in Canada, the current price is 99 Canadian dollars, reduced from 120. 120 will indeed be the retail price, or at least the suggested retail price. We don't actually control what retailers decide to charge for our games. We just have a suggested price, and the amount that the retailer pays or the distributor pays is based on that suggested price. Lori asked about Wormspan or Finspan on BGA. Hey, Lori, sorry, I answered that earlier. I think I didn't answer fast enough. I am a little bit behind on comments, but yeah, both of those games should eventually be on BGA in a few years. Andrew says, has the stock already arrived at Spiral Galaxy? It has, yeah. The only inventory that hasn't quite arrived yet for Vantage are the accessories in the US, which are due to arrive next week, and the entire shipment for Canada won't arrive until early next week, but it should be fairly seamless. We aren't anticipating that shipping for any region will start until early next week anyway. Oh, awesome. Thank you, Chris, for ordering. Chris is a fellow creator and publisher, and I really appreciate that, Chris. Timothy says, while the game plays multiple player counts, what do you feel is the sweet spot? I typically play at 2 players. Vantage is indeed designed to play from 1 to 6 players, and I think it plays at those player counts well. It does get a little bit easier at higher player counts, and there's definitely more time between turns in Vantage, even though I wouldn't call it downtime. You are doing things when it's not your turn in Vantage. But the sweet spot for me, I think I will be primarily playing Vantage at 1 to 2 players. I am happy to also play with friends all the way up to 6 players. But when we do that, we'll have to know what the time is because the length of the game can go on a little bit longer as player counts go up as well. So I really, really enjoy Vantage solo, and this is coming from someone who doesn't typically play games solo. I really enjoy it at 2, and I really enjoy it at 3. Once it gets to 4, 5, 6, I need to start to use like really high levels of difficulty because it does get easier at those player counts. Darian says, out of curiosity, why do you specifically say there won't be an expansion to Vantage? Darren, everything in the world is interconnected. And so all the stuff that I could possibly put into Vantage and to fit into that web of interconnected things is already there. I already put it in there. I didn't leave anything on the cutting room floor. And really, just the way that everything is linked, it isn't conducive for an expansion. So for example, in some other games, someone might have created a single continent for Vantage and said, okay, in the future, I'll expand to other continents. But in Vantage, it was really important to me that you could actually walk all the way around the world in any direction. And so to do that, I needed to include all locations that could possibly be in the game. It goes deeper than that on multiple levels, but just the way everything is interconnected in Vantage meant that it is not conducive for an expansion. And so I just wanted to be clear up front to say that everything that ever exists for Vantage exists right now. I'm not making more content for Vantage. The only thing that might happen someday is I might use the action system in a completely different game. Yeah, but we'll see if that happens. I don't think that's likely because I like trying new things, but I do like the action system. Hans says, how did you manage to stay focused on Vantage over such a long period of 8 years? I don't know if I don't even know if focus is the right word. I understand the question, but because part of the reason I was able to keep going on Vantage is that it wasn't the only thing I was working on. I do a lot of other things at Stonemaier Games, and I worked on other games at Stonemaier Games. I designed entire games in that time that weren't Vantage, that released before Vantage is releasing. And I think that helped. I think that actually helped me not burn out on Vantage. That might be the way I'll say it. That I didn't burn out because I had these other projects. Because progress on Vantage was very difficult to make at times, or at least to feel like I was making progress. If I changed one thing on one location that impacted other locations, it could be weeks or months before I was able to make that change across the entire world. It's just, you'll see when you open it. It's a lot in the box. But I was having fun the whole time. I mean, part of it was that I was working with the artist the whole time too. So it was really neat to see every time they would share a new illustration, I would get really excited about it. Here's a tip from Aaron, who has played Vantage, about first play in solo. He says, don't learn track of the structure of a turn, specifically when a turn ends. I think that is a good tip. The Infinite Dude says, I imagine you'll make a video about this at some point. Will you say more about your reaction to Galactic Cruise? Yeah, I do. So yesterday I filmed videos about my favorite mechanisms in all 11 new to me games that I played on the cruise. Galactic Cruise was one of them. And I had a lot of things that I really liked about the game, but I was really impressed by the positive player interaction of the game. I wasn't anticipating that, but there was a lot of positive player interaction and things that you do that improve everything for the entire group. And the game makes them feel really, really good. Not just because you're doing something positive, but just you get a lot of stuff by helping other players in the game. I thought that was really cool. Austin says, does Vantage have a cameo from Walter and Biddy? It does. And it's not a big spoiler because it's actually the very first location that you go to, location 000, where you start every game. You can see Walter and Biddy right there on the box. I think I answered this question earlier, Chicken Nugget Supreme. How do you decide what kind of disc will be used for a given game? It's related to the Innova names for the games. Oh, for the discs, not the games. Michael says, do I have a favorite location in Vantage? Ooh, there are 800 different locations in Vantage, so it is really hard to pick a favorite location. I don't think I have a clear favorite, honestly, because it's tough to pick a favorite. I do have, yeah, there are some really difficult to find locations that I'm very excited for people to find. I wouldn't say they're my favorite location, but I'm very excited about those locations. Julio says, do you think crowdfunding has affected general views on expansions? It seems people want games with expansions released at the same time. I do think that's an interesting phenomenon that honestly, I don't entirely understand. That why I would buy an expansion for the game if I don't even know if I like the game yet. That to me is odd. Or why would I sell an expansion for a game before you even know if you like the game or not? It does seem to be a trend in crowdfunding to do that, but I don't entirely understand it, Julio, I must admit. Actually, I do have a question for you all today. I meant to ask this before we run out of time. Sorry, I know this has been a one-way conversation so far today for the most part. But I mentioned that I went on this gaming cruise over the last week and had a wonderful time. We went from Southampton to the Nordic fjords, back to Southampton. If someday in the future we had a Stonemaier at Sea cruise, a Stonemaier at Sea gaming cruise, where we played games on the boat and we went someplace really cool on several of the days, where would you want it to be? There are lots of different options for cruises around the world, but where would you choose for a Stonemaier at Sea cruise? Scott also says, what's my favorite part about playing Vantage? Really, I hear my cat Walter over here. My favorite part about Vantage is the freedom that it gives me to really choose to do whatever I want, to say whatever is important to me at that moment. Sometimes I go after the mission or other goals. Sometimes I just say, it is important to me in this game that I do this thing and that I get this thing done. And the game says, yes. The game says, yes, you can do that. It is okay for you to do that, or at least try to do that. I really, really love that sense of freedom in Vantage. Mitch says, will you create a documentary that details the creation of Vantage from concept to release? That's something I'd love to see. I have the design diary, the Vantage updates over the last year. I don't plan to do a documentary about it, but I appreciate the interest in it. I think the closest that I probably get is the Tales from Production video that I filmed and released a couple days ago. Or maybe it was last weekend. A couple days ago. If you look on the YouTube channel, you'll see a Tales from Production video. That might be the closest that I get to doing something like that. Trishul says, to what mission level did you play Bomb Busters? I felt that it took some repeat plays to reach beyond the introductory levels. I thought the tutorial was excellent. We only got actually through 3 scenarios. It comes with like 50. I'd love to play more of them, but we only played the first 3. Frank says, do you ever get tired of a game while designing and playing it over and over again? There are times in some games that I work on that I need a break from. And sometimes I take that break during the design process or the development process. Sometimes it's just a break when I send the games off to production. I am happy for that break and then excited when the game is the fully published version of the game is released. I will mention for Vantage, I've never gotten tired of it. It especially for solo play, it is so easy to get to the table that it's kind of my just kind of clear my mind and relax game. It's my chill game that I have not gotten tired of. Any anticipated solutions if a Vantage owner loses a numbered card? Yeah, we have a robust replacement part system that we've had for many, many years now. So if you lose a specific card in your game, you could just request it on our replacement parts form. I will mention that if you do lose a specifically numbered card, it's possible that you just put it back in the box in the wrong place. And so I'd encourage you, if you think that happens, to go look through your cards and see if you can find that card before making a request to the replacement parts form. But we're happy to do that. Christopher says, will adding metal coins to my Vantage order impact delivery? Global answer, overall answer, no. No matter what construction your Vantage order is or exactly when you order it, really has no bearing on your order. In general, it's going to take us several weeks to ship all champion orders, and then a few weeks after that to ship all non-champion orders. Do the add-on playmats, metal coins, and wooden tokens fit into the core game box? They do. They do. You can see, actually, I'll show you here. So the one caveat is that the player mats, if you put them in the box, they're not needed. You don't need the player mats. They're optional. But if you do get them, they add 12 millimeters of lid lift, a little over 1 centimeter to the height of the box. But I'll show you here. You can also just store them next to the Vantage box. It's a 25 millimeter box that they come in. This is the dual layer player mats. So it doesn't take up much more shelf space just to leave them in that box if you want. Did Vantage accessories arrive in other region stores, or are they delayed as well? This is only a US thing that I mentioned about the Vantage accessories arriving next week instead of already having arrived. That is not an issue for any other region. That is only US. Stuart says, did you ever study up on a language before going to a new country, or just kind of wing it with English and hand gestures? I did study a little bit of Norwegian before going to Norway, but everyone we encountered spoke English so much better than my attempts at Norwegian. I tried to thank people in Norwegian, but even that seemed a little odd to do. Normally, I think that's a good gesture in another country to try to use basic things like please and thank you in their language. But it actually it felt odd to do that because they were so comfortable in English. Trishul says, is Vantage your biggest co-op game after Viticulture World? Will other Stonemaier games support co-op play? Vantage is definitely by far the only co-op game that we've had before this is Smitten, which is 18 cards. Vantage has 1,300 cards, and Viticulture World is an expansion for Viticulture, not a standalone game. Co-op is certainly always a question, but I don't think it'll be a common thing for us to introduce co-op as an expansion. I think a game will either be cooperative out of the gate or not or competitive. Gary says, was the BGG at Sea Cruise just board game players, or were others on the ship not related to BGG? There were 200 of us on the ship that were there to play games and also see Norway. There were another at least 3,000 to 5,000 people on the boat, I think, at my estimate, who were just there to do cruise stuff. They were not related to the gaming at all. It was a very big ship. What are some of your favorite productivity tools, and how do you ensure a comfortable work-life balance? That's a big question. I love the question. I'll answer very briefly. Productivity tools. I love list-making apps like Trello and Basecamp, and Google Sheets. I use Google Sheets quite a bit for checklists. And comfortable work-life balance. I tend to compartmentalize my day into different segments where I work on certain things in the morning, certain things in the afternoon, and then creative stuff in the evening. And one thing that has really helped me over the years, both for, I don't know, for a variety of reasons, is while I'm happy to like appear on a podcast, I'm honored when someone asks me to appear on their podcast or their YouTube channel for an interview or a chat. I decided years ago that I didn't like doing that in my evening time. I really like setting aside my evening time and my weekends for more creative stuff. I do still do some other types of work there, but I decided I found myself doing podcasts at that time and being eager to get off the podcast and get back to other creative stuff. It was so I've moved that to doing those things during the day. And most podcasters and video channel owners are very flexible about that, and I much prefer doing that, I found. So just kind of figuring out when the best times to do things are. Oh, you all got a special treat from Walter there. Curvecut says, is Rolling Realms related to Vantage in some way? Completely different games. Rolling Realms is just a meta game in that we create these different realms. So like this is for Rolling Realms. It doesn't do anything in the game Vantage. It's only for Rolling Realms. It's a mini game for Rolling Realms based on some of the mechanisms in Vantage. I see trick taking a request from a few people here. Trick taking game. Ben says, can you compare and contrast Seventh Continent with Vantage? What lessons did you learn from Seventh Continent launches? Ben, I'll try to answer this briefly. So both are open world games where you can pretty much move in any direction at any time. In Seventh Continent, you are looking down at the map with a bird's eye view. In Vantage, your location is a first-person location that only you can see, and you are far across the planet from the other players. You are not together near other players. Both games do have the element where the art is there for a reason. The art is there for you to look at it and learn things about what you can find, how difficult things are. Use the art to your advantage in both of these games. I would say Seventh Continent is more of a survival game than Vantage, at least at the beginning of each scenario. Seventh Continent is also a scenario-driven game where a scenario can last, I don't know, 10 to 20 hours sometimes. Vantage is not. Vantage is a standalone game that you just play in standalone sessions. Ultimately, I think they feel like pretty different games, but if you enjoy the aspect of looking at the art and moving in any direction that you want, that is a commonality between the two games. The playmats do fit into the Vantage box with around 12 millimeters of lid lift. What is the purpose of not sharing your location with others in multiplayer? You can share, you can talk about your location. You're within radio contact of other players, but they, just like I'm looking at something right now that you can't see what they see. This is really, really important to the game. The whole game is designed around this aspect that you can't see what I see. It prevents alpha players. It means that you actually have to use your eyes and your voice to describe what you're seeing rather than passing around the table. It reduces downtime because you're not passing over location around the table for everyone to look at. There are a bunch of reasons that I actually list in the FAQ about this, but those are some of the crucial ones. But most importantly, thematically, you're in a different part of the planet. You can't see what other players can see, and they can't see what you see. So yeah, it's a big part of the theme, but also the mechanisms as well. Fallen Raven says, how are you able to design, organize all the locations for Vantage in terms of what their numbers? The numbers on the locations are entirely irrelevant to the locations. It's just an organizational system. So it was just a matter of like whatever an artist sent me a new location, that was the next one in the numbering system. So there wasn't, I wouldn't say there's much organization that went on there. It was more like, I guess the key element of the numbering was that the smaller cards in Vantage, the numbering for them starts where the numbering for the location cards ends. And so at a certain point, I had to make sure they lined up. That was the puzzly element of the game, to figure that out, and essentially put a cap on the bigger location cards and not make any more than that number. Joshua says, is there an average number of locations that playtesters were visiting in a single game of Vantage? I think it's normal to visit around a dozen locations per player in a game of Vantage. Also, another one, I forgot to mention this earlier about why you don't show your location, replayability. If I'm looking at a certain location, if I'm looking at location 400, I'm describing it, I'm talking to you about it, but you can't see it. It means that later on, when you stumble upon location 400, you're going to have your experience with the location authentically for the first time. Then at that moment, you get to see it that first time. You get to maybe wonder about what that person's looking at, but it makes the game more replayable, more discoverable, because you don't get to see, in like a 6-player game, you don't get to see 60 different locations. You get to see like 12 locations. Is there a reason you chose to have cardboard tokens with a wooden upgrade versus including wooden in the box to begin with? Yeah, for price. Yeah, I wanted to keep the price for Vantage as accessible as possible, and the cardboard tokens function just perfectly. And so, if it was an impediment to gameplay to do that, I would have considered something otherwise. But yeah, making the price, as you can see, I think we offered a pretty fair price for Vantage given what you're getting in this game, and I didn't want to inflate that by adding on things that people considered optional. Tim says, how soon after order day do the fulfillment centers start processing? Same day, or is there a cooldown day? There's around a 24-hour period where we'll get the bulk of the orders, and then we'll send the fulfillment centers will get that information, start to process it into optimized batches, and they'll start to ship most likely on Monday is when they'll start to ship some champion orders. The Vantage playmats fit into the Vantage box with around 12 millimeters of lid lift. Benjamin says, are you ever personally surprised by anything in Vantage when playing it, having designed it? I'm constantly surprised by Vantage. Yeah, even though I technically know in my brain somewhere everything that is in Vantage, because I put it there, I wrote it, I didn't illustrate it, but I've looked at every illustration many, many times. But I can't remember all that stuff. It's 7,000 different actions in the game. So I am constantly surprised when I play. As a non-spoiler example, I did play Vantage recently. What did I play? Yeah, so, well, it would be a spoiler if I told you, a minor spoiler, but it would be one. But yeah, I don't remember what is to the left and the right of every location, or what every result for every action in every location will be. I don't know the difficulty of every action. I know some of the clues that will help you figure out what the difficulty of the actions is, or the cost of those actions, but it's just literally too much information for me to remember. Alex says, have you considered a companion app to replace the Book of Secrets for Vantage? No, I'm not. I'm looking for Vantage to be a screen-free experience. So yeah, we're not looking at companion apps for it. If it's something that, and eventually I think we'll poll Vantage subscribers to see if it's something that they really, really want after having actually played Vantage with the storybooks. If they still want it after that, maybe we'll consider something like that, but most likely not. Julia says, what would I say is the target group for Vantage? That's a good question. I would say the target group, there might be a number of different people who I think could enjoy Vantage, but I think maybe the key thing to keep in mind is that it is truly a game about exploration and discovery. The game does not tell you what you're going to find in this world before you start playing. So the type of person I think who will have the most fun with Vantage is someone who is okay with actually truly discovering things for the first time as they're playing, rather having the game tell them what they might discover before they play. Okay, I'm a little bit over time, and my food schedule is way off because I was on European time for a little bit. I know I'm missing some questions here, but please, if I missed your question and it's important to you, please post it on YouTube, on the YouTube comments, and I will answer after lunch. But I really do appreciate it. I'm sorry that I haven't been able to answer all the questions. I will go back and look at your answers about where the Stonemaier Cruise should be, because I am very curious about that answer. But please, if I missed your question, please post it in the comments of the YouTube video after I end this video in a moment, and I'm happy to answer them. Thank you so much. Happy Vantage Day. I hope you enjoy the game, and we'll be talking about it a lot over the next few weeks.